You are surrounded by people. The room is loud. Someone just laughed at something you said. And yet, somewhere underneath all of it, you feel completely alone. Not sad, exactly. Just absent. Like you are watching the whole thing through glass. If that has ever happened to you, or if someone you love comes home from a party and seems somehow emptier than when they left, this is going to explain something that most people never find words for. Here is the thing nobody tells you. Loneliness is not about how many people are in the room. It never was. And the fact that you feel it most sharply when you are surrounded by people is not a sign that something is broken in you. It is actually a sign that you understand, on some deep level, the difference between being witnessed and being merely seen, between connection and proximity. Most people never even notice that gap exists. You feel it like a physical thing. Here at Mind With Me, we do not just name these patterns. We pull them apart until you understand exactly why your mind works the way it does and what you can actually do about it. So let us start with what is really happening. Because the word loneliness gets used for everything, and that vagueness is part of why people keep handing you useless advice like, just get out more, or you have so many friends, how can you be lonely? As if the problem is a numbers deficit. As if you just need to top up the social tank. Researchers, including the psychologist John Cacioppo, who spent decades studying this, draw a clear line between two completely different experiences that both get called loneliness. Social loneliness is the ache of not having enough contact, not enough people around. That one, yes, more people can help, but emotional loneliness is something else entirely. It is the absence of feeling truly known by another person. And here is the brutal part. You can be in a room with 50 people and feel emotional loneliness so sharply it is almost like a sound, because none of those 50 people are actually reaching the part of you that needs to be reached. Think about the last time you were at a gathering, maybe a work event, a birthday party, a family dinner. You were there. You were present. You probably said the right things. You laughed at the right moments. You performed the entire sequence of being a person at a social event. And then you got home, sat down, and felt this particular kind of exhaustion that is not about being tired. It is more like having run a long distance and arrived nowhere. That is emotional loneliness doing its work in real time. Sign 1. You can perform the social script perfectly and feel nothing from it. You know exactly how to hold a conversation. You ask good questions. You are warm, you are engaged, you remember people's names, you follow up on things they mentioned last time. From the outside, you look like someone who is thriving socially. But on the inside, there is this quiet awareness that the interaction is happening at the surface, like two boats passing close enough to wave, but neither one stopping. The skill of socializing has almost nothing to do with the feeling of connection. And because you are good at the skill, people assume you must be getting the feeling. They are wrong, and you know it. And you cannot quite explain why without sounding ungrateful. Sign 2. The crowd actually makes it worse. This is the one that confuses people most. You would think that more people equals more chances for connection, but emotional loneliness does not work like hunger, where any food will do. It is more like being thirsty and standing in the ocean. The water is everywhere, and none of it is what you need. When you are in a room full of surface-level interaction, and you are wired to crave depth, the contrast between what is available and what you actually need becomes almost deafening. The noise of the crowd does not drown that out. It amplifies it. Cacioppo's research found that lonely people in social settings often show higher stress responses than when they are alone. The crowd is not neutral. It is actively reminding your nervous system of what is missing. Sign 3. You feel loneliest right after a conversation that almost went somewhere. You were talking to someone. It started to get real. They said something honest. You started to open up a little, and then one of you pulled back, or someone else walked over, or the moment just slid away. And afterward, you feel this specific ache that is harder to explain than plain loneliness. It is the loneliness of almost, of the conversation that could have mattered but did not quite get there. That particular pain is actually a sign of high emotional sensitivity. You can feel the shape of a real connection even when it does not fully form. That is not a flaw. but it does mean you feel the near misses more acutely than most people do. Sign 4. You have stopped trying to explain this to people because explaining it makes you feel more alone. You have tried, at some point, to tell someone that you feel lonely even when you are around people. And you watched their face do that thing. The slight confusion, the well-meaning but completely off-target suggestion. You should join a club. Have you tried being more open? And you smiled and said something like, yeah, maybe you are right, because continuing to explain felt like pushing a door that was not going to open. So now you mostly keep it quiet. And the keeping it quiet is its own layer of the thing. The loneliness of not being able to talk about your loneliness without making the person you are talking to feel like they have somehow failed you. It is an absurd position to be in, and if you have been there, you know exactly how absurd it is. Sign 5. You feel most yourself in one-on-one conversations, and you are not sure why group settings feel like a different language. One-on-one, something shifts. The depth you are looking for becomes possible. You can track the other person, they can track you. There is actual back and forth that goes somewhere. In a group, the conversation moves too fast and too wide. And the kind of thing you actually want to say keeps not being the right thing to say in that format. This is not shyness. It is a preference for the conditions under which real connection can actually happen. Large groups optimize for breadth. You need depth. And a world that defaults to breadth keeps putting you in situations that feel like being handed a map for the wrong city. Sign 6. And this is the deepest one. You sometimes feel loneliest with the people who are supposed to know you best. A long relationship. A close friendship. Someone who has been in your life for years. And there are moments, not all the time, but moments where you look at them and realize there is a version of you they have never met. Not because you hid it on purpose, but because the conversations never quite went there. Because life got busy and the depth got postponed, and now there is this quiet distance that neither of you has named. That is not a failure of love. It is what happens when emotional connection is never actively maintained. It drifts. And the loneliness of drifting from someone who is still physically present is one of the strangest and most disorienting feelings a person can have. Here is what this costs if you leave it running on its own. Cacioppo's research is unambiguous on this. Chronic emotional loneliness, the kind where you are surrounded by people but never truly reached, has real physical effects. Disrupted sleep, elevated cortisol, a nervous system that stays in low-grade alert because the thing it is wired to need, genuine felt safety with another person, is not arriving. You do not need to be isolated to get there. You just need the connections you have to consistently stay at the surface. And over time, you start organizing your life around managing that gap instead of closing it. You get very good at being fine. You get very good at not needing things, and somewhere underneath that, you get a little more invisible to yourself. So here is what actually helps. Not a 12-step plan. 3 things that work, and work fast, if you actually do them. First, stop trying to fix loneliness in group settings. That is not where emotional connection happens for you. Identify one person, just one, and ask them for a longer conversation. Not coffee with an agenda. Just time. Something like, I want to actually catch up properly, not the 5-minute version. One real conversation does more than 10 surface-level social events. Second, practice what researchers call self-disclosure reciprocity, which just means go slightly deeper than you normally would and see if they follow. Not a confession, not an emotional download. Just one layer more honest than your default. Honestly, I have been feeling a bit disconnected lately, instead of, yeah, things are good. Most people are waiting for permission to go real. You can be the one who gives it. Third, and this one is for the people who love someone like this, stop trying to fix the loneliness by adding more plans, more events,